Hey, what's happening? Barnaby here, talking about gluten intolerance around the dinner table. I'm talking about the foods you can and can't serve when it comes time to sit down with the family at 6 o'clock. Joining us is Jessica Butcher, registered dietitian. So it would seem that gluten intolerance spans all the meals, but man, come dinner time, especially for the meat and potatoes crowd, you got yourself into a situation here.
Well, actually, those two foods that you mentioned, meat and potatoes, those are safe options, but it's what you add to that meal that's where it gets tricky, especially if you're trying to have a meal with pasta or, even some of your rice mixes out there. Some of those things are going to contain gluten in them.
Well, what's interesting is I always think of gluten as being bread, but you mentioned rice, you mentioned pasta. I mean, you really have to kind of drill down on this to understand truly what contains gluten and what doesn't.
That's true. And then, when we're right here in the aisle with lots of different rice mixes, pastas, we have our couscous, lots of different versions here. And rice in itself, now that's a grain that is gluten-free. But where it gets tricky is a lot of us like to just buy these boxes of, prepared rice. They come with all those nice flavorings for us. They're ready to go. And that's where some gluten can be added into that mix. So that's where you need to watch out. But if you're just buying your plain, whole grain brown rice, just plain in a bag, that we can know is gluten-free. So that's a good safe option.
Who would ever know that? Now, so as we look at the back of boxes with the long list of ingredients, which ones are we supposed to be aware of? What would signal in your mind to be gluten?
Gluten, well, right away we know wheat, rye, and barley. Those are the grains we want to watch out for. And then some of these other flavorings in there, we have some different spice mixtures, some of these different starches. Now starch, that's a tricky one in itself, and for the most part, if it just says starch on a product's ingredient list, it's supposed to be made from cornstarch, but a lot of people still kind of question that. But in the United States here, if it's a product made here, it is supposed to be only made from cornstarch and not wheat, so that should be a safe one. But there's lots of other additives and flavorings that we just don't know, and they're not required to be listed on the ingredient statement for us, because the ingredient statement only looks at the top 8 allergens, including wheat. But wheat's not the only thing we need to watch out for if we're looking for a gluten-free food.
Okay, so if you suspect that you're queasy following a meal, you might want to consider the fact that you are gluten intolerant. And let's talk about how bad you have to feel, where you're going to feel bad to maybe have a suspicion that you are gluten intolerant.
Now, if you have even just the plain gluten intolerance, you're going to notice a lot of GI upset. You're going to have your abdominal pain, gas, bloating, just kind of some not great feelings going on. But at the same time, if that continues on and you end up going to see your doctor, then you're going to find out and get those blood tests, and you're going to find out if you are truly diagnosed with celiac disease, and that's where the greater complications come in.
All right, I'm going to blow your mind right here. It can take up to 12 years to correctly diagnose whether or not you have celiac disease. So it is an extended journey, one you have to be really diligent about. But you know what? A lot of people probably think, hey, if I go all organic, if I'm just that way, I'm going to have no problem with gluten intolerance because it's from the earth. I'm meant to handle it. True or false?
That's definitely false. There's lots of products that are straight from the earth that are gluten-free, and those grains are very much safe for us. And we did talk about a few of those versions in an earlier clip, so if you take a look at our breakfast clip. But there's so many versions out here, and when you're looking at a lot of these products, it can be very confusing, like even couscous. A lot of people think that that's just a grain in itself and it's completely safe, but it's actually a portion of wheat. So that one truly does contain gluten right away. And then if you're looking at another product like buckwheat, sounds like that one would contain wheat, so it would contain gluten, but in fact it's actually gluten-free. So it's very tricky. You really do need to meet with a dietitian and kind of talk through the different foods and grains out there to find out which ones are gluten-free and which ones are not. So it's a very confusing process when you're starting out, but it does get easier.
Well, I'll tell you what, it all starts with a baby step, and you've taken it right here at HelloLife.net, because we're all about matching your commitment to a healthy lifestyle.